500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, "I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die."
G'day everyone, this is X-Band, the Phantom podcast. Our website is chroniclechamber.com and you can subscribe to our podcast via YouTube or through your favourite podcast apps. Do not forget to give us a rating on your podcast app and tell a mate about us. This is episode 248. This is our April 2023 Comics and News podcast, where we had originally planned to have a podcast chat with Ash from the Phantom video game, but unfortunately, due to circumstances, that has been delayed. Hopefully we can have that podcast and that chat very, very soon. But in the meantime, if you have any questions that you would like us to ask Ash in our chat with him, please email them to chroniclechamber@gmail.com or hit us up on Messenger as well. We'll see it there. Okay, that's the pleasantries out of the way. G'day. That's not just me, Steve, here doing the podcast. If you're watching this on video, you know already that I have Dan and I have Jermayn. G'day. I'll start with Dan. How are you?
G'day, Steve. Good to be back fandoming with you guys. It's been a couple of weeks of hiatus while we've been on holiday and that sort of thing. And unusual to be recording in the afternoon. It's interesting. You're inside. I'm at a different angle, and Jermayn doesn't even have a Phantom shirt on. So what's going on? Yeah. We're all out of.
I was actually going to put a print up just above that. Oh, where are we? Over that window, because I picked up a couple of prints yesterday. I'm more on that later. And yeah, Jermayn, where's your Phantom shirt?
It sounds like an invitation that you want me to take my shirt off on the podcast, but
nah, we'll just keep that to a G rating. Actually, I could probably hang on.
To be honest, it was a bit of a mad rash to get it. Like I was scanning comics and eating my lunch at the same time for this podcast. But again, as I said to the guys, don't tell the wife, that I can do more than one thing at a time, because then she might expect it a little bit more often. But no, look, it's been good. It means we can all put the kids to bed. We can have an early night, and so looking forward to it.
Maybe a little bit less gibberish than the evening podcast if we're doing one in the afternoon. Although, Steve, you're trying on a Phantom vest there.
Well, I thought, what have I got in arm's reach I could grab that was more Phantom related than my blue hoodie. I just grabbed the Phantom vest. I don't think I'll be able to fit into this yet. I haven't lost that much weight. That's still a medium. That's not a hope at the moment. I think that was from the Year 9 formal or school ball. I'll put that back over there. Okay, so let's get into it. We've got 2 Frew issues to review today. The first one is Frew 1941, which is 2 stories in the claw of the Vultures by Claes Reimerthi and Janusz Ordon, and Crippled Jake by Shane Foley. And I think right now Jermayn has put the image up. I'm just going to have to minimize that so I can see my notes. Okay. This is part of the Empty Throne saga, or the 22nd Phantoms storyline, if you like. Jermayn did create For Those Who Came In Late video, which is very handy. I remember saying in the last podcast that it's been a long time since we've revisited this storyline, and that For Those Who Came In Late video does come in handy. So if you haven't got up to speed with what's happening in this saga, please go watch that video, and hopefully that will help you. Now, our last episode did start off with the first issue. This is again a little bit confusing, in the latest chapter of the 22nd saga, 22nd Phantoms saga. So you can also have a look at that, see what's going on there. But from last issue, we have, spoiler alert, bang, bang, bang. There was a critical death of a main character, Dr. Axel. He's no longer with us. So that's a carryover from the last issue. Also, General Bababu, he has fled the city after gangs have overrun Morristown. And Diana's boss has been kidnapped by Diana, in quote-unquote marks, if you like. So that's we're leading into this story. Now, the synopsis of the story, we open with Dr. Axel's funeral. Then we our next scene is we see a prisoner in the shadows. Now, likely this is Bababu, but this is unclear at this stage. It's all in the shadows. You're not quite sure, but pretty likely it's Bababu. The V operative has taken off her mask, her Diana mask, so now the reader knows that it wasn't Diana who kidnapped Kurt Fleming, but Kurt Fleming's wife still thinks it was. The story then progresses with the Vultures' plans rolling on and getting bigger and bigger. We know traditionally the Vultures are, they pick off the carcasses, but here they're getting a bit bigger. They've got bigger plans now and are trying.
It's like they're creating the carcass for them to pick.
That's exactly right. That's a great way of putting it, Jermayn. Kid and Heloise are going to the States to clear their mother's name. And there's also that V operative who tried to kidnap Diana in the last episode and get her report earlier, who is absolutely hell-bent on finding Diana for the Vultures. Okay, boys, that's the synopsis of the comic, or of this storyline, of this episode, if you like. Any comments you'd like to put forward? I'll go with Jermayn first. You're on next to my order here.
Well, I love the storyline. I love the art. Janusz is doing a great job, in my opinion. Just things with like with the V's, they're all in the shadows. Now, I very much doubt they have glow in dark paint, which they mark on their head, but it's a great artistic feel, which it kind of makes them look bad guys and and stuff like that. I thought the whole kidnapping by Diana, if I was to be picky, we could have maybe had that strung along for a little bit longer of, was it Diana, was it not Diana, where it was kind of like solved pretty quickly. Obviously the reader knows, so it could have been done a little bit better. But yeah, apart from that, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying the whole saga. It's fast paced. The art's great. The storyline's great. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I just wish we kind of saw more of it, to be honest.
What about you, Dan?
Yeah, I'll find myself nodding along with most of what Jerm said there, to be honest. I also am really getting into this story. I wasn't, as I've been on the record before saying I wasn't sure about it, but I really, now that we're past the point where we're worrying about where the 21st Phantom is, and we're all about just following the twins as they go on their adventures in the suit. I'm really enjoying it, and for its place in time, and I think it's well written. I agree with your point there, Jerm, about the reveal about Diana probably coming along a bit too quick. But other than that, it's well paced. The artwork's fantastic. I love the way that Ordon is mixing up his use of panels. Your comment about the V being painted on in black on the page you've got showing at the moment on the YouTube, page 21, the bottom right-hand corner there. I'm pretty sure the Phantom's mask doesn't glow like that in the shadows either. It's a thing that we see and we love. So, no, I think he's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, I agree with you too. Not having 21 there was always a bit of a stumbling block for me, but like you said, it's a story of its time and place. I don't want it to be the main one, and I think I'm on record with that. 21 Phantom is the Phantom, but it's a good little creative storyline which I'm enjoying, which I didn't think I would.
It enables
a different story to be told.
Well, it does. But there's always the, should the 21st Phantom die or whatever. So this allows the 21st Phantom not to be the main Phantom. We have an ongoing storyline. So for those who are like, yes, let's move on from the 21st Phantom, it keeps them happy. But then for the ones that are like, no, the 21st Phantom is our Phantom, want to keep reading them until, another 50, 80 years in the future, it allows for that as well. So, it's realistically, it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it really is.
And to be honest, I would like to be able to see other creators do something similar with the Phantom where they focus on one Phantom and they really go in depth like this with those other Phantoms. So, for instance, whether it's the swearing of the oath, and it could dovetail on with other stories, and then it could dovetail in with other stories, and you can add bits, and a bit like what Peter Anderson has done with the 19th Phantom with his honeymoon.
Yeah,
is
that's
we've
exactly
had
what I was thinking. I was thinking Peter, and also Shane's also been going back into the
yeah.
previous.
So it would be nice for them just to be able to say, be able to,
flesh them out.
and to be able to kind of like be able to somehow join together, whether it's with Team Phantom and whether it's with the Frew crew or whatever. But they're able to say, okay, look, I am going to focus on this Phantom as my main. Not they don't have to write all their stories about that Phantom, but that's going to be the one I'm going to flesh out. We've done all the hard work on the Phantom Bible, so they kind of know what his mannerisms are. They know, who he's married, how he's swore the oath and stuff like that. And then they can just kind of flesh it out. So, like, there's a lot of Phantoms out there that I really like as characters because they're all different. And I wouldn't mind learning more about them like we are with Kit and Heloise in this story.
Yeah. What about you, Dan? Any comments?
Yeah, I thought you were the way you started that. Actually, I thought you were going down the line of other authors jumping on board and writing 20-second Phantom stories, which,
too,
especially given that Reimerthi's passed, I actually don't mind the idea of that either. Though obviously we need to see where this one, this arc wraps up or finishes up. But also, there's lots of ways to write Phantom stories standalone from the rest of their history and all the rest of it. So I wouldn't mind seeing some 20-second Phantom stories, team ups between Kit and Heloise, that sort of thing. I'm really enjoying the way that they work together, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more as we go into the Flooded City, the next part in the next issue as well. As I sit and talk about the story, I sort of conflate the two because I'm just thinking about the whole storyline rather than just this chapter. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the way that they work together. I'm enjoying the relationship that we're seeing continue to evolve between them. And so your point about authors deciding, right, I'm going to focus in on the 12th Phantom or whatever it is for me and write a bunch of stories. Yeah, that'd be a great way to explore those. But I'd also like to, see other people dip their toes in this 20-second Phantom world.
So,
and I like to, sorry, Jim. As you're saying there, Dan, the character development with Kit and Heloise, they're gelling more as a team. It's not always smooth sailing, but they are gelling a lot better as a team than when they started out, I think, anyway.
Definitely. So what I was going to say is in the Phantom Men podcast with Andreas and Jacob, we actually that was one of the questions that we asked them is who is going to continue on with this series. And so that they're well aware that, hey, this series overall has been quite popular, that it needs to continue, and you can't just get any creator, because we've said it a few times, and I won't labour the point too much so we can move on to the next story. But what makes this work and is a lot more palatable for some of the hardcore fans who don't like change is that there is a lot of the 21st Phantoms lore elements and stuff in here. And so you need to have a real understanding of the Phantom and of the Phantom's history, especially the 21st, to be able to continue on with this story. So look, if I had to be a betting man, I would put it down to either Andreas Eriksson himself, Peter Anderson, and maybe Philip Madden, or maybe David Bishop. They're probably my four that I feel like could continue on with this story with and be able to run on. And then it was also interesting, one of the things that they did make mention in the podcast is that Mikkel Sol knew the end game in a sense, and seeing he's no longer on the editorial team, do they talk to Mikkel and kind of go, okay, where was Claes heading with this? Do we follow that, or does the new creator team kind of go, yeah, no, I don't like that, I'm going to go my own direction? So,
well, I think my point is, and Steve, you said you're enjoying this more than you thought you would, and I am too. I think part of the reason of that is we've made that break. The Phantom's disappeared. No one knows where he is, blah, 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 blah. That's fine. It actually ties in really well in a way with what Tony DePaul did in the dailies as well, with his here's how the Phantom dies. He just disappears and doesn't come back one time. I like the fact that we're no longer worried about that. This story is completely just here's the 22nd Phantom. 21st is not there. Whatever. We've got a story with Diana in it, and I think once we finish this arc, it would be just perfectly fine to have 22nd Phantom stories involving these two, with no worry at all about where does this fit in the overall arc of the 22nd Phantom. I think we can get caught much up in that sometimes. Whereas a lot of the Phantom stories that I really love, from the Wilson McCoy era, and a lot of the Cy Barry stuff as well, is they're just standalone. They don't worry about being part of the big picture.
Yeah.
So as long as you don't do anything that fractures that big picture, you're fine.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so, would you like to see Kit and Heloise find love, date, find new characters that are going to help them in their battle against evil? Maybe a new president, maybe, like that type of stuff. Would you like to see a whole new, lack of a better term, universe created?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying have small standalone stories like Fluffy, and those sorts of stories that they don't need to always be world building. They can just exist within the world, operate with the world that exists as it is, and don't always be worried about who's the new characters, how is this going to affect the lore. Just exist within the world. Don't continue to world build.
Okay, fair enough.
Rather than going on to the follow-on story, do you want us to get on to the Flooded City as a follow-on?
I think so. I think that's a good idea.
So the next chapter in this Empty Throne saga is The Flooded City, once again written by Claes Reimerthi and with art by Janusz Ordon. Now, it opens with the twins heading back to the jungle. They're disappointed that they weren't able to save Kurt Fleming. Always got to say Kurt Hemming, and that's because I'm a wrestling fan from the 80s. And if anyone knows who Kurt Hennig is, perfect. They'll get the joke. Now, not every... what was I going to say? Yes, that's right. They're not looking forward to seeing the ruined jungle hospital, yet they are pleasantly surprised when they turn up. There is a news report that with General Bababu out of the picture, international aid can now enter Bangala. Wackadoo, everything's fine and dandy now. Bangala is finally going to get the help that they need. But the problem is the Vultures have infiltrated the UN and have corrupted some of its members, as we all know through Diana's report. And now the Vultures are set to make a fortune as they go in under the cover of international aid. This forces Kit and Heloise to protect a village as well as Bangala's treasury. Also, Diana's stalker is still on her trail. And I expect a big blow-off with this plot thread. This has just been going on, and it's building up nicely. It's a slow burn, and this I can't remember her name, I'll just keep calling her the V operative, has got it in for Diana. That's going to be a massive blow-off. Well, I hope it's going to be a massive blow-off. And one little thing before we get into your reactions, I did like how it's a couple of kids who help save the kids in the jail cell. I really like that, and maybe it's foreshadowing something, I don't know, but I just really like that point. I started with Jerm last time. I'll throw to Dan for this one.
Oh yeah, look, again, this is a good continuation of the story. It's action. It's the idea of we're just going to partially flood the city by partially breaking the dam, where you can see right from the beginning that's going to lead to a weakened dam wall in the whole. Plus, it's called the Flooded City, so that probably helps. But again, I like the way that Kit and Heloise are working together. I'm a bit over them calling each other brother and sister. Great idea, brother. Yes, let's do that, sister. So maybe a little bit more variety or imagination there. But I do like, the awareness of itself as a full story, where Heloise in this one says, oh yeah, let's get another inflatable boat. The last time we were in one of those, it got shot up, which is obviously in the previous chapter. And then of course this one gets shot up as well. So, that's really clever and anyway, long roundabout way of saying I'm continuing to enjoy this as we go.
It's a nice, fast-paced story.
Yeah, they are. All of them have been, or at least these last two. And they're episodes to themselves, but always lead on to the next bit. Yeah. Sorry, you're Jan?
No, I've just finished watching a TV show called Treadstone, which is following on obviously with the Bourne series, and you've got various story plots of various main characters that all kind of intertwine. And like I'm watching that, I've just finished watching it, and then in reading these again for the podcast, it reminds me, obviously it's a different story plot, but how you've got all these different plots, storylines. You've got the V, you've got Diana, you've got, Doc Axel dying, you've got, that overarching thing, what has happened to the 21st Phantom, and they all kind of just merge together. It's great, skillful storytelling. And the thing that I like about the two main characters, Kit and Heloise, is that they have the equal amount of time to be able to share in the limelight as well. And it's not like it's dominated by Kit or dominated by Heloise. It's like they're actually an asset to each other, both fighting as the Phantom, where I don't think that's always been the case. Like we've had this discussion before where Kit was always the bumbling idiot and Heloise was always, but they're not like that anymore. They're actually highly trained.
They're very much on equal footing.
Yeah. Mm. And they work to their strengths. They work to their abilities. Obviously they're going to have different abilities than the others. Kit's probably going to be stronger because he's, a male. But Heloise has got her other benefits where she can be better than what Kit can as well. So I'm really liking that. The whole flooded city and all that. Look, I think we've probably all seen various elements like this with water and, being sucked away and in various stories, comic books, movies, TV shows and stuff. But look, it's fun. I thought, we haven't talked about the covers yet, but I thought Granger's cover with the whole blue, I thought this is probably his brightest cover I've ever seen him do. And the beauty about it is it stands out on the newspaper stand with that bright blue and, the Phantom upside down and stuff like that. I've really enjoyed this comic.
Yeah. And you're right with the flooding city. It's over the top. It's exaggerated. Is that really going to happen in real life? Yeah, who knows? It's a comic. It's supposed to be over the top. It's supposed to be exaggerated. That's great. Yeah.
And just one last thing on the characters of the Kit and Heloise. I was just thinking as you were describing the difference there, Germ, we do still have their individual characteristics as well. A number of times through this, Kit is more headstrong and is prepared to take risks and just go, well, there's an idea, I'm going to follow through on it. Launch into danger. Heloise is probably a little bit more circumspect, but
which you expect with a young 21, 18 to 21-year-old, you expect that, like whether it's on the football field,
they are the ghost who walks.
yeah, exactly. It's and that was one thing that I learned and really appreciated doing the Phantom Bible, was learning about the characteristics and the mannerisms of each individual Phantom. And you're right that they're not just a cookie cutter superhero. They've actually got personality, and it's been enjoyable to learn about Kit and to have seen him grow up.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned the cover. Oh, sorry, Stephen.
Yeah, I was about to do that. I was about to lead into the cover there, Dan. We're going to do exactly what you did before we go into the backup stories, because both covers actually relate to the main story. And so this is the first one here, the claws of the vultures. And I'm sure Jen will put up a better one on the video, but you might just see. I'll just put that close to the camera. You might see a little signature there. I can see Jem's face smiling.
That's weird. It's not on mine. What happened there?
Really?
I don't have that gold squiggle either. What's going on?
More on that later. So issue 1941, the cover is by Alex Tripp, who would be he's going to have a chat with us in a week or two, I think, for a podcast, which is going to be what we're looking forward to. One of my sons saw that cover and made a comment about it. I can't remember what they said now, but didn't realize it was like through the scope of a gun. And once I said that to him, oh right, yeah. But I think with everything that's gone on, like that happens in the story, having the scope is quite fitting for that story for this issue in particular. I think they're always getting shot at, and there's always someone aiming, even if it's someone who's on their side, they're aiming at them all the time. What about you, fellas? Like the composition of the cover, it's another kind of a wraparound. There's two distinct images on both sides, but they're working well with one another.
So on page 17, you've got the scope of from Fleming, I think it is, looking at the 21st Phantom, and that's when the first dinghy gets shot up. So it's interesting. Now, is that Heloise or will that be Diana? You would say.
I thought that was Diana. And now that I'm looking at it closely, there's about 3 or 4 guns actually pointed at them, which just really.
Yeah, I actually think it's a really cool cover. Having those guns around the outside as well adds to that threatening danger. The bullet holes that are through the Phantom logo as well. Yeah. It's been put together really well. I do wish that Heloise was on the front cover instead of Diana, to be honest. It would make sense. You can't tell by looking at this immediately that it's the 22nd, both Phantoms. You can obviously, there's 2 Phantoms in Granger's cover for 1941. I think it would have been better, rather than have a wounded, scowling Diana there, to have a similarly on the attack Heloise by Kit's side. Especially given, as you've said, the panel that it drew inspiration from, that's actually Kit and Heloise in the dinghy that are getting shot at. So that would have been more appropriate. That would be my only criticism in terms of the way that this composition and these characters are finished out. It's a really cool cover. I really like the action pose of the Phantom himself. Obviously, he's got a grimace on his face as he goes into action. But neither of the Diana or Kit look particularly happy in that photo, as you might imagine, into the pressure that they're in. But I think it's been executed really, really well. Do like Alex's art.
And the intricacies in the sculling are plain to see as well. I think it's excellent. And you're right. It makes it look like it's Phantom 21 rather than second. It's the Phantom and his wife Diana. But hang on, no, it's Diana's kid. Jim?
Yep. No. Nothing really to add. I like Alex. For those will listen to the podcast, soon, probably in the next couple of weeks to a month. But he's a really nice guy. He's a young guy, really eager. Got a lot of interest, a lot of time for someone like him. I love his work. I've got a sketch cover of his somewhere. But yeah, no, he's one to watch.
He's a nice guy. And he's just chuffed that people are enjoying his work, which is great. And the next cover is Grange. We've mentioned Grange already with probably his, like you said, his brightest cover ever, with the use of the blues. Phantom in a upside down. Things aren't well there, and the Vultures, of course, not swimming, but coming out of the ocean there on the back. Looking menacing as they are. Jim, I'll let you lead with this one.
Yeah, look, I like this cover from Grange. I think the blue really makes it come out with the blue and the purple, and then you got the red logo that stands out. I've said it before, but like the bubbles going over the logo on this one, you had the bullet holes in the logo. It's just
it's great to work it in. Gives it more dynamic.
Yeah. I really I enjoyed it. For me, the colours make this cover. It's a good choice of the colours, and this is one of those cases where I've seen what it looks like in black and white, and while it looks great, and I do have I do have an appreciation for what Grange can produce. The colours make it pop. So yeah, really happy.
Anything else to add there, Dan?
Oh, I just really like the I love seeing the different styles of all the different cover artists, and we just commented about Alex Tripp's Phantom that he's produced there. I like the way that Grange and Grange is obviously continuing to have fun and extend himself and that sort of thing. I like the way that he's got more of stylized, elongated limb type Phantom. It sort of gives you that, for both the Heloise swimming and Kit sort of flailing, gives you that sense of that turmoil that's under the water and that sort of stuff as well. And it's a really minor thing, I know, but a shout out to, I guess it must be Dudley as editor, who's putting the actual story titles on the covers, the Flooded City painted black in this occasion. I think the way that the fonts that he's using, the way that he's doing that across a range of different comics recently, really work with the cover art. And it's a long way from the yellow strip across the top that we knew from the 800 series comics. It really, at the moment, they are really working in with the art, which I like.
Absolutely. They're not just stamped on, they're caressed on. I really like Granger's art here. I know it's not. I know it's done digitally, but it does have that paintbrush, or not. Maybe not. I'm not an artist. I'm not going to have the right terms, but it seems more hand done rather than digital. We know
that's because it is.
I know. Yeah, but the color. I mean the colors.
Oh, the coloring.
Yeah, I know that the actual work.
It's
been originally done by hand, but the coloring actually looks hand done rather than digital.
It matches that style.
Yeah.
So, before we move on, one of the questions, we did ask this on Facebook. I
forgot about this one.
We want to be able to raise it. Now I actually got to try and find an example of it.
Just Kit and Heloise.
Flooded City, page 3. Like for instance, you've got them, in the jungle. They're in their civvies. In the previous issue, you can see them in the civvies when they're with where is it? Here they are. They're fighting in their uncle, grandma's and Uncle Dave's house, and they're not wearing their glasses. Now, we raised this question on social media, so I think it's only fair that we let you two have a bit of a chance to reply as well. There was some great responses.
Can you give us some of those responses? I can't remember what they are off the top of my head.
Well, to be honest,
maybe I should have a look.
Yeah, no, I would rather hear what you guys have to say first, and then if it's any different from what some of the others say, we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, I know that you sort of raised or you talked about it maybe in our group chat about, is it a deliberate tactic by the creative team to send a signal to us that the 21st Phantom is not dead and these guys aren't really the Phantom yet, so that's why they don't need their eyes covered? Or is it just an oversight from the creative team and the artist in particular to have left those eyes uncovered? I must say it did stand out, and maybe it was the Flooded City right from the get-go where you do see both of their faces, particularly that fight scene that you mentioned where you see their faces during the fight scene. I would rather that they are shaded now. I think that they are the Phantom, and I don't think we should be seeing their eyes. Perhaps that's part of that step I was talking about before in terms of shifting away from trying to make sure that everything is in lockstep with the world that you've built, but just make these more standalone, turn them and make them genuinely the 22nd Phantom. Of course, that led to the next thought.
Phantoms. Phantoms, plural.
Correct. But that did, of course, lead to my next thought as to a significant complication in all of this is, what do you do about the skull ring? Because they both need one now, and there's only one, and it's on the hand of someone who's disappeared. So that is a significant complication. Good ring, that's probably a difficulty that the creative teams have got to work out because...
Well, I have an answer to that question.
Vultures should be getting skull marks, and they're not, and it's not good.
I have an answer to your question, Dan, sorry. Is in a past, now it is a Team Phantom in story, so I'll leave that up to whether people want to accept that or just ditch the idea straight away. But the fourth Phantom actually got his ring stolen by a Jesuit priest. And then he actually got a replica ring made to substitute for the ring. And then when they refound the ring, I think it was his son, so the fifth Phantom found the ring in Sweden of all places. He then put the substituted ring away in the Skull Throne. So there is a substituted ring already, and a Phantom has worn, or two Phantoms have worn it for a number of times. So you've got one substitute ring. What's two substitute rings? And I think you're right. I would like to see them both wearing substituted rings.
Or, make new rings. As long as their eyes aren't covered, then there's no clean break from the 21. 21 must still be alive. I'm just trying to think back with Julie stories, or even stories where I can't remember, but it was a past Phantom and his son was he was captured, so his son was trying to rescue him. I don't remember his son having his eyes shaded. I could be wrong. I'd have to go back and look at that. So until 21 dies, their eyes aren't shaded, and they're not truly Phantoms. So take that as you will. Take that, creative team. So there's no clean break until the Phantom's dead. Long live the Phantom.
So what you're saying, Steve, is actually very interesting, because one of the things that
I'd often say interesting things.
Well, yeah, me and your wife would disagree with that, but never mind. And I'm sure your kids don't always agree with that either. But no, in this case, what's interesting is, we got 20. There was about 25 odd comments, and then there was probably another half a dozen people are actually messaging and commenting on this as well. So look, there was at least 30 other fans that were intrigued enough to be able to make a comment about this. Is that in past Phantom stories, the eyes being put into darkness, or you can't see him in the comic strip, it's either there's been two ways that it's been done, and it's not really set in law. So, and Lee Falk has done both, so you can't even use Lee Falk as an example. Is that sometimes their faces are only disfigured or not shown when they become the Phantom, when they swear the oath of the Skull Throne, of the skull. And from memory, I don't think Kit and Heloise have actually sworn the oath yet. So that's another interesting point.
Correct.
But then in other stories, as soon as they're of age to become the Phantom, i.e., let's say 17, 18 onwards, they don't have their eyes shown. So in Team Phantom End stories, in Lee Falk stories, there's been a mixture of both. So there's not even a real clear example to kind of show, to demonstrate what it is. Now, my personal opinion is that the reason why we're seeing the eyes is because it's to show us that the 21st Phantom is still alive.
Yep.
That's what I personally think. Majority of people kind of thought that as well. But there was a lot of comments about, of should they be shown and stuff like that. So look, it's an interesting discussion. We raised the question with Andreas and Jacob, and we got a very swift no comment. So I think from that quick no comment, I think it's fair to say that it's not an accident by Janusz.
I don't think anything here is an accident.
Yeah. So
there's no oversight. Okay. Moving on, we'll go to the backup story to 1941, which was Crippled Jake by Shane Foley. Now, originally, this story wasn't going to feature the Phantom, as Shane Foley mentioned in X-Band episode 247. It is a historical story which has the 13th Phantom, and it's got a supernatural element. And I know there's fans out there who don't like either. So having them blended together, it might be a bit too much for them, but we'll see how we go. I thought it was fast-paced, and there's lots of shadow work, the Phantom working in the shadows.
This is the type of story where you hope the artist gets paid by the amount of ink they use.
They've used a lot of ink. It's exactly what a short story should be. Bang, you're straight into it. It's action-packed. It's beginning, middle, end. And that was fun. What's next?
Yeah.
That was my view. What do you reckon?
Very, very good.
Yep.
Very, very agree with that analysis. I think Shane talks about it where it's I'm trying to remember the exact words you use, where it's I'm paraphrasing, where it's like a nothing story with it starting and ending in the second act or something like that. It's
kind of like a crossover story. You don't see why the Phantom is tired or
why he's in Europe or why he's there or what's
he's just there.
Yeah.
And now he's going to put the girls where they need to be, and then he's going to go on his way to his next big adventure, the next 36-page adventure or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And this is exactly the sort of thing I was talking about before with regard to the 22nd Phantoms. Like, there's no world building for the 13th Phantom in this story. We don't find any more or less about his family or his anything, exactly like you said. It's a snippet in time, and I love seeing these sorts of things, and I'd love to see more of them for all of the Phantoms, including the 22nd. Anyway, I'll go off on about that point enough. You mentioned about how there's supernatural elements to it, Germ, and I am again on the record of saying that they're not my preferred stories with the supernatural, but this isn't heavy supernatural occult or anything like that. It just, at the end of it, you're like, did the Phantom just see a ghost?
Yeah,
that's and there's nothing wrong with a good ghost story. So
it's a ghost story and a Phantom story.
Yeah, that's right.
Does that work?
They work well, don't they?
Yeah, and that was the point I was going to make as well. Is like I like those types where you're not sure if it happened, whether it was bad pizza, or a bad dream or whatever. It just happened. It's there. It's done. 8 pages. You move on. Like I said before, I hope Shane got paid by the amount of ink he used, because he would have raked it home with this one. Because and I do like that.
But there's certainly pages where he should have started with a black page and used a white pen.
Well, that was what I was wondering is like especially this page here, number 30 or something like. And you've got this panel here. Is did he just just have a white page or did he just start with the black page and then just cut out little white little squares and then did it on there and then sticky taped it on or something like that? Because this one here, which I'll zoom in if you're on YouTube, that would have been a lot easier doing it with a white pen than it would have been inking that all with a black.
Hopefully Shane listens to this and gives us some information on the composition, because it's really is interesting.
Let us know in the comment section below, Shane.
Right, and our second story, if you like, is Painted Black by Paul Mason. This is a continuation of the Phantom in Vietnam storyline that we have going. Now, with the Phantom having little luck tracking the Wambezi prince in Vietnam, it is time for Mr. Walker to have a go. And he's decided that he's going to join the press corps. Because as a member of the press, he has access to military transportation to, pretty much anywhere in Vietnam, and no questions asked. And my goodness, has he joined the creme de la creme of press teams? All right, let's just get
good-looking roosters there.
Yeah, some good-looking roosters. All right, we've got Cy there. We've got Barry, of course, who's in charge of us of all. Then we've got these 3 fellas of Parker, Fraser and East, I think. Looking at the comments there, the speech bubble, and you couldn't want to be with a better team. And ably led, of course, by Cy, the bureau chief. So that
Chronicle Chamber. Where is it? It's just on the notes and the pin-up board behind us as well. So I
was trying to look at the notes the other day.
Yeah, I sent it to David, and he was David Barry, Cy's son, and he was very touched and very
I saw double check there. I was trying.
Yeah, he was just like, oh wow, that's pretty awesome. And he just went and shown his dad. So thank you, Paul, from us, and stuff like that. So and then
very much appreciated.
Unbelievable, really. The idea that you might end up in a Phantom comic, very thoughtful of it. Thanks very much, Paul. Very humbling.
And not only in a Phantom comic, sharing a space with Cy Barry.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Now, it is worth making mention that Frew do have a deal on is that if you would like to be featured in a story, you can contact them and pay some money and stuff like that. So if that's something and you would like to be in a Phantom story like that, there's a few other fans and creators and in the past that have also had featured. So make sure you contact Frew if that's something you would like to do.
It's always great to see stuff coming back. I'll just finish my synopsis of the story. I haven't finished doing that. Now, in this episode, we're no closer to finding the Wambeezy, or the Phantom's no closer to finding the Wambeezy Prince in this episode, but he does get to deal with a member of a known criminal organisation. We can see it there on the screen there. It's V, of course, who are getting a big run through in the in the Empty Throne saga. So V have put their mangy heads up again and picking the bones out of another war-torn country. Fella, who did I go to last time? I went to Dan first. I'll go to Jermayn this time. Any comments?
So in our last review with the last Vietnam story we reviewed, we talked about how we would like to kind of have a mention every so often that the Phantom's in Vietnam for the Wambeezy Prince. Like straight away I read it and it's like, now I know Paul had finished his story and it's been in print way before he would have listened to our podcast, but I did get a chuckle because it's very, and when he's listening to it, he probably goes, yeah, just wait one more issue and that reference will be there. But it was like, yes, there we go. We did talk about that. That's covered off. It's a good reminder for those who might be in late, coming in late that, this is why the Phantom's there. He's not glory hunting or whatever or anything like that. The other thing I did like is you've got the splash page here, which kind of breaks up the story. That's been a bit of a, this is page 26, 27. It's been something that we have raised a few times. And then I love these shots of, Leon Gross's notes. And I like it how this one's at the end instead of at the front. It just kind of mixes it up a little bit. And I thought it was, I like the placing in this one.
Yeah, I'd agree with both of those comments. I was probably going to make both of those points as well. I guess it's interesting in the last page on Leon Gross's notes page, the one that's on the screen there, we've actually got Kit Walker's Daily Press credentials taped there. And is this the guy? It's the closest that the FBI agent, who's sort of the conceit of how all of this is, being told to us. It's the closest that he's got to actually working out who is this mysterious character who was operating during the Vietnam War. So it's interesting that even that's sort of it's not even really a story. Well, it is. It's a storyline in itself. Is the FBI going to work out who the Phantom was? We've got a step in that direction as well. So as far as the actual story itself goes, with the Phantom bumping into a Vulture again and then letting him know what's what, I really enjoyed that. It's interesting, isn't it, how these ideas go in waves, and we're getting a lot of Vulture stories at the moment. There was a bit of a spate of them last year. It's obviously a group of bad guys that lots of authors have come across and gone, you know what, I reckon I can do something with that. And it works in perfectly with what Paul's doing with the whole Vietnam series. If the Vultures are real and exist, of course they were in Vietnam trying to make a dollar out of it, because that's what they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's this little scribble here. Sorry, Steve, just on back of what you said there, there's a little scribble here. Vulture activities, see archives, Frew 1715, which is 1886 to 1888. Obviously, that's the Lee Falk Barry story. Frew 175 is when it was last printed. And then you've got World War One, World War Two, and Korea with a question mark as well. Yeah. So,
There's really, what was I thinking of? Three narratives going on here. One, we've got we've got Vietnam, the Vietnam War. That's happening, and it's a through narrative there. That's a place to be. We've also got the Phantom trying to find the Wambeezy Prince and bring him home. So there's the second one. And the third one is, these reports. Who the heck is this guy? And it's all just tying together real nicely. And having the story set as it is, it gives, and we've seen it today with the Vultures, there's opportunity to bring in these bad guys for an episode. So of course V are there, and maybe V are going to show. Oh, sorry, I keep calling them V. Vultures will show up again because of who they are. But will the Sing be somewhere in there? Who knows? Looking forward to the next I think comes out in the next normal issue, doesn't it? The next part.
The front cover of 1942 under the message from the publisher says that 1940 is going to have We Got to Get Out of This Place, which is the seventh installment of the Phantom Vietnam series.
Yes.
Yeah. And Showdown at Paradise Hotel, that is a cover done by Alex Tripp. I saw that the other day.
Have you seen it as well?
I've seen that, yeah.
Well, we're getting a lot of teasers, Steve. I'm looking forward to the payoff for all of these teasing that you do.
Yeah, well, I don't have too many things to actually show you on today.
Making everyone have to listen to the podcast, the whole podcast.
Yes, you've got to listen to the podcast. Rightio. Now we've done the Frew issues here in Australia. Now it's time to add that touch of international flavour, and we've got some reviews from the latest Phantom comics from Sweden by Mikhail, and the latest comics from Germany from Christian. Take it away, fellas.
Phantomen Review.
Time for another Phantomen review with me, Mikael. This time it is issue 8 of 2023 with this cool cover by Henrik Jonsson and what was the name? Janusz, with the Phantom looking quite grim and some green gold letters. Yeah, it's quite striking cover, and it's almost Easter here in Sweden, so it's an Easter egg. They have double covers. No, just kidding. I think it's only my issue has that, but yeah, printing error, I guess. We get on the editorial page here some forward about the new writer of the first story, and then we have some talk about the Chronicle Chambers interview with Andreas and Jakob, and here we are, me and Jermayn and Andreas and Jakob. It's episode 243. You should check it out if you haven't already. This new writer, who is that? Yeah, it's Jörgen Karlsson, and he has written this I skräckens skugga, so like in the shadow of fear, with art by Carlos Pedrazzini. I'm not great at pronouncing names, so take it with a grain of salt. And this is his first Phantom story, and it actually got some news coverage on the national news here in Sweden, so that's very good because we need all the publicity we can get. And he has already written Carl Schempe, its own comic, and that has been a side comics, and I've been raving about how much I like it, and let's see how his first Phantomen story is. So it has really nice colors for start off, and it is basically about this some bandits that ran into the Phantom, and they almost see him as a evil ghost. So I think it's really interesting how in usual Phantom stories we always see the Phantom finds out something bad is happening, he goes there and fix it, and this time we get to see it from the bad guy's view, how they can view him, and that's interesting, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope to see more stories from Jörgen in the future, and yeah, check it out if you have the possibility. Then we have the side story Libertalia, part 1 of 2 of the last album, and I think it's nice that it's going to end soon. I've both enjoyed it and gotten confused by it a few times, but yeah, it's nice to know that it's written with a clear goal in mind, that is soon happening. So looking forward to reading the conclusion. And when can we do that? Well, we can do it in the next issue, because this is the preview of the issue number 9 that will come out 20th of April. It will have a Phantom story about Frankenstein, and it's not the Frankenstein from the Frew, but a new one from Jon Boyks, again with the pronunciation, and it will be all in black and white, so that will be cool. It's about the 17th Phantom. Looking forward to that. So until that time, happy Easter and happy Phantoming.
Hi, my name is Chris, and today I review the Zauberstern Phantom comic number 6. Let's begin. Advertising. Then in Phantom number 6 we got Godfall 2 to 5. In the original it was part 2 to 5 from 2010. The cover is von Art Tibert. The next poster is from Stefan Sumbetsky. In Phantom number 5 it begins with Godfall and now it continues. The paper and the printings are awesome. The story I like a lot. We got 88 pages of comics. In the middle we see a new double-sided poster. Some advertising. The poster from Henrik Sahlström. Advertising. Then let's see, and the next Phantom magazine comes 14th June 23. Some advertising, another poster from Timo Würz, and some advertising in the back side. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, fellas, for your international reviews. Okay, moving on to the newspapers. I don't know why we call them the newspapers. Hopefully they're still in newspapers somewhere around the world. But we've got the daily and the Sunday story. So the daily story is Daily 263, Dungeons Undone. I've been following this, well, daily, as it would. Germ has a few notes here. I might let Germ lead with this one.
Oh,
And because it's your notes here, I'm assuming.
yeah, I gotta remember what I wrote now. Where
You reckon on April 1st the guy gave up too easily? Oh, is this the
so
Ordon?
these are just
Yeah.
so we've got here basically
So the guards don't deserve to die. They can give up.
yeah, so this is some of the points that we made and discussed last podcast was, how do we feel about some of these people dying, so to speak? Do they deserve to die? Should they die? And stuff like that. So what I thought was interesting is that from about here onwards, which is the 30th of the 3rd, which is what's that? That's March. You've got this guy here. I believe he's a sergeant. He sees the dead guys here, and then he actually gives up. And I kind of like that as a nice counterbalance of what we have seen before. Is that now I'm not a fan of how the Banda have invaded another country and started killing people, citizens.
We've spoken about that enough times, I think.
So we've spoken about that. Most people know where I stand on that. This is a good counter argument where they've actually shown, whether you call it restraint or whatever, but you've seen someone who, this sergeant here, we don't know his name, he's just Sarge or Sergeant, where he has given up and he hasn't been harmed. And you see these guys here as well. Obviously they've given up because they thought, crikey, they don't pay me enough for this. So I just thought that was a nice counter discussion or counter, I guess reflection or whatever you want to call it of what we discussed last podcast. So yeah, so I just thought that was and then like you see later on where he goes, I am not going to give you the ammo. I am not going, like he's doing it, but he's kind of like saying, oh, I'm not doing this. And
Not me doing it.
yeah. So it's, it's, I just kind of like that as well. The other point that I had was on the 12th, you're having the Phantom talking about the list of prisoners obtained by John X, which was in 2021. So it was quite a long time ago where the Phantom, there's another alias, John X, as a jungle patrolman, found a list of prisoners that was obtained by John X. This is when he came to the prison for the second time. He found a list of prisoners, and basically the Jungle Patrol has analysed it, and they have split the list into two. Basically the people that should be in jail are going to stay in jail, and the people that shouldn't be in jail are going to be released. I was intrigued at how this was going to play out. And one thing that we have learnt with Tony DePaul is that he plays the long game, yes, but there is that payoff. So, there was that initial shock, like, why is he leaving the prisoners here? Then it's like, well, okay, now he's decided he's going to rescue them, but how's he going to choose which one are good or which one are bad? And, we're questioning Tony DePaul, but obviously, he's already thought about that 5 years ago. So I was just, there's just a couple of those moments of payouts of the story where we've all questioned, not just us, everyone, whether it's on Comics Kingdom website, whether it's on Facebook, or whether it's just fans.
People question him on Comics Kingdom? No.
Yeah. Another point that I wanted to raise, this is on the 15th.
Just on that point, Germ, I thought it was interesting. You said that the list had been obtained by John X back in 2021. The story was actually There Comes Towns Ellaby, which we didn't rate very highly when we reviewed it on a recent podcast. So it turns out even if you don't really rate the story, you've got to keep a close eye on things because there are seeds getting sown. You just don't know when they're going to germinate. So
very good point. I thought, now, the Phantom wears this big belt that goes from, that's what, how big would we say the belt is? Probably what, a good 10, 15, 20 centimeters. There's a lot of room there to be able to put stuff. And, we see him shoving the list inside the belt. It reminded me of the Avon novel, The Golden Circle, where in the story, he actually keeps stuff inside his belt. So some people might go, oh, that's too Batman-y, but it makes sense that if you've got this big, thick belt, you would be able to stash stuff there or...
it's not like he's got pockets anywhere else.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah. He doesn't, exactly. He doesn't have pockets elsewhere. In the Golden Circle story, I think he had an oil skin, which had like a lamp or like matches and stuff like that. So, he was able to, like he was in a dark tunnel, and so then he was able to use it to be able to light his way. And, it does make sense. But, it was kind of interesting.
What about you there, Dan? You did a bit of a binge read this afternoon, catching up while you're on holidays out fishing.
Yeah, I did.
How have you thought of it?
I did go on a fishing trip when I was away for a couple of weeks in a place where there's no internet. So they did have newspapers. So ironically, I would have been able to keep up if it was still being in newspapers. Look, it was really interesting. And I've said many times on the podcast about how I prefer to read the daily once it's compiled, and to be able to go. I went back to Mike Manley's Facebook page because once a week he posts the black and white strips from the previous week. And so I caught up via that way. But thank you very much, Mike, for continuing to put those up like that. It was a great way to catch up. I really enjoyed this little sequence of the story the last 2-3 weeks. The Phantom, there's clear, you asked about does the guy give up too easily? And this is a great example of a panel on the 22nd of April here. The sergeant's coming along behind the Phantom. Yes, you don't have to say it twice or that or anything else. The Phantom only has to ask once. is the old jungle saying. When the Phantom asks, you answer. There you go. There it is on the 20th of April as well. So great to see that. I really just enjoyed this sequence. It made a lot of sense. The Phantom, yes, smashed his head against a door, but it's not like he was over the top with his violence. It was, roughnecks getting treated roughly. That's another old jungle saying. Just really ties in. The story's moved along well. I was great. Yeah, solved all those questions you asked before, Jerm, about letting prisoners out and all that sort of stuff. I just think this is progressing really well at the moment. I'm really enjoying this storyline.
It ties in well with the print by Alex Tripp, which is entitled "When the Phantom Asks, You Answer." I don't know if anyone can see that, but there we go. Okay. Sunday storyline. Now, when I was just checking to read yesterday's daily, I just noticed that today's Sunday, so I haven't not completely up to date where we are. But these story, Return of the Temple of the Gods, as we know, these stories start in the newspapers, then in Team Phantoman. And now we're back in the newspaper stories. We have a video online to check out. We've got here third passageway, Germ. Random crazy idea, the Skull Cave. Could it be related to the visitor who keeps disappearing?
That's today's strip.
Oh, so the one that I haven't read yet.
Yeah, that's probably why you're looking at it.
I'll make that nice and big so I can read that now.
So this is where we're up to, where basically they're being housed. Then they're kind of asking questions, what's going on and all that type of stuff. This part's quite text heavy. And then we spent probably a month or so kind of recapping everything, kind of spelling it out if you hadn't figured it out by the story and all that. I thought this was funny, where you've got this almost human trying to keep an eye on him. I love just little things like this, which, we talked about it with Janusz Ordon, just the use of the shadow work and, and stuff like that. Jeff does that, the Phantom shadow, but again, with the eyes and, there's no way the Phantom's shadow actually physically looks like that, but it's a comic. Fun. There's allowed to be those exaggerations of certain elements to be able to make a point. And, it's just really good.
I did see someone comment about that on somewhere. I thought, you joking? You're getting caught up on that? That's actually really cool.
And so this here is today's, as the time of recording, the 23rd of April. So basically it's the next day. The Phantom basically says, let's see the dead professor's assistant. She's saying, follow me. Then they're kind of going through. And then the Phantom says a third passageway to the surface, and you see it kind of half working out. Now, I don't think it is, because you can kind of see it there and it doesn't look like the skull throne.
I don't think it's anywhere near the Skull Cave there. I just had to read a bit myself.
Yeah, but I just like it kind of went, that point is like, we know that there are tunnels and stuff under the Skull Throne, under the Skull Cave, which even the Phantom hasn't fully explored. There was the 21st Phantom that found the Viking, the burial of a past Viking. So there's a lot of secrets in the deep section of the Skull Cave, which no Phantoms are aware of. And I'm just wondering if Tony's got something up his sleeve, and I would not be surprised is maybe there's whether it's the third or whether there's a fourth, but the Skull Cave is somehow connected. And then maybe we're all wondered with the recent story, the visitor, how he can disappear and stuff. Maybe, just maybe, the visitor is actually almost human. It's just some of those random thoughts you have when you're
interesting theory there, Jam.
Yeah, when you're preparing it for a podcast, and you kind of let your imagination kind of go wild for a little bit.
What do you think of this story there, Jam? Dan?
Oh, yeah, I'm not a massive fan. The whole, I mentioned before about what did we say? supernatural stories, that sort of thing. This isn't supernatural, but it's bordering on it with almost humans and all the rest of it who are supposed to be living under the earth. We're getting through it, aren't we? We must be getting closer towards. I'll be looking forward to having this one wrap up and move on to the next Sunday. It's not my cup of tea.
I'm looking forward to seeing it all collected again and reading it as a whole.
That may help. That may help. I really do. Sorry, you may have seen me roll my eyes when you made that suggestion about this being linked to the visitor story, Germ. I really hope that's not the case. I don't want to be building this in as any sort of serious part of the Phantoms universe.
Well, yeah. Look, it's just an idea. Just let your imagination.
Yeah.
I would like to see Frew release when this story finishes. Maybe get in touch with Tony and say, hey, Tony, do you have any parts planned in the next year or two? Because if he does, delay it for a year or two. But if he doesn't have any plans to continue it, and depending on how it finishes and all that, collect the past newspaper stories, the past Team Phantom End stories, and this story, and actually do a trade paperback or a collection of all of the stories, because you have some great artists. You have Tony DePaul, have Jeff Weigel, you have Cesar Spadera, Paul Ryan. There's some great artists in there. Make it color. It could just be a nice, it could be a nice collection.
I think the art is certainly fantastic, and I do enjoy that. I think if there was a trade paperback along the lines of what you'd suggested, I'd have to buy it because I'm a bit of a person like that, but it'd probably stay in the shrink wrap, to be honest. I'd enjoy the cover.
What about putting in doing reprints of the issues? Would that help and probably won't happen? Well, maybe we get through before 2000s, maybe, but something just after the 2000s, depending on what their print runs like, and just do a whole series, bang, 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 bang.
Oh, who knows? Just the whole Temple of the Gods business. I'm not fussed on. But that's all right.
Not a fan.
That's not about me.
For those of you who criticise us for not criticising the creators, there you go. We're not happy with everything. Okay. Something that I am absolutely over the moon. I can't put a bad word against this. Well, not at the moment anyway. And that's the Phantom video game. Some images dropped just this past week. Date of recording is Sunday, April 23rd, as we mentioned just before. We saw images of the Skull Cave. We saw images of the Phantom fighting bad guys in the Skull Cave. There is a bridge with a waterfall. There is chasing poachers on a plane while the Phantom and Diana are riding on Hero. There are punching poachers in a jungle fight. And once again, we do say, if you have any questions about the Phantom video game, please let us know, and we'll put it in with our chat with Ash. Now, I haven't had a chat with Ash. He is a bit crook, unfortunately, at the moment, but I did have a chat with Matt. And until I have a chat with Ash, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say on a, we'll say a public broadcast.
Now, it's quite obvious that you're excited. Now, is it true
I am.
Is it true that you had to do work today on a Sunday and miss a family event because you were so excited on Friday when these images dropped that you stopped work?
Yes and no. Like the work that I did on Friday, I was still working on Friday, but the work took about 5 times as long as what I had planned. And that actually had nothing to do with the video game. It was actually, I thought, I'll get it done.
Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, Steve.
Thought I'd get it done in an hour and ended up taking the whole day because I wanted to change a number of things. But it was interesting the way that it's all planning out. So, yes, there are bad guys in the Skull Cave. Why are they there? Well, that's pretty much one of the big points in the video game. If Ash hasn't told us about it, I'm not going to be the one to spill the beans.
Well, that's part of the storyline, isn't it? I like that we're seeing some of the scenes and that sort of stuff, but I also like that we don't have spoilers on the storyline yet. I'd really like to be in a position where I can play it through and learn the story for myself the first time, to be honest.
So I'm not going to give you any. So anyone who's who's listening to this, looking for spoilers, I'm not giving them to you. It's just not going to happen.
We'll ask Ash the stories, and he can always tell us, or he can say no comment.
But it is an interest. The story, what I've heard from Matt works really, really well, and I'm fairly certain that it's all been approved by King. But he did give me one interesting tidbit. Both Mr. Walker and the Phantom are in the video game, and it's an interesting mix how you interact with them or how you play with them. I'll just say that. And the goal of the why is the Phantom and Diana, there is an important point why Diana is there as well. Why are they fighting these bad guys? What is it? What is the whole goal of the game?
So Diana's not just a eye candy.
No. She's
excuse for a second player.
I'll just say she is as ticked off as the Phantom is.
Yeah,
and is much in a part of this game as the Phantom. One thing talking with Matt though is there's so much more backstory than what you can put into a video game. Like a video game is 15 levels or whatever it is. And you got to keep the thing going. You can't be weighed down with text and story. So I really, really hope that they can have some comics that tie into this, into the computer game.
Well, that would be awesome, and you'd get Anthony's play on the artwork, so it all ties in.
Yep. And can fill in those little spots that they just can't put in the video game. Like Matt's got this all going, and you just can't put it all in the video game. So it'd be awesome to have these tie-in comics.
But that will all be the type of questions and stuff we will chat with Ash, which hopefully should be our next podcast or again inside the next month. So yeah, as Steve has already said, if you have questions, send us an email, contact us. The one thing I do want to make mention before we kind of do move on without Steve telling us too much is the artwork looks a lot better than what I envisioned. Like you look at the artwork and it's like, wow, that is good. That is going to work a lot.
It's crisp and it pops.
Yeah. It just, and so like, if that's the type of artwork you're going to get, there's going to be it's going to keep a lot of fans. It's a lot of fans and a lot of people will be happy.
Yeah.
What struck me looking at the 4 images, and I wish I had them at my fingertips to bring them up on screen for people, but what struck me about the images is that they seem really crisp. The screen is uncluttered, so you can see what the action is. You get a good view of the scenery as well, and we've got those 4 stills, but they just look really dynamic. They look like the game's going to be really dynamic. Is it the one where he's in the Skull Cave and he's punching a Sing pirate? I love that with the Phantom doing a massive uppercut, there's this purple skull shape that comes out and shows you the motion of the punch. I think that's, again, it's those things that make you realize that these guys know what they're doing as Phantom creators. And yeah, all of those stills just looked really exciting. I'm not as much of a gamer as you are, Steve, but I'm really looking forward to sitting down and seeing this unfold on the screen as I play it out 15 months from now.
And also at Supernova yesterday, Matt had little posters of it, telling everybody about it. And every time you talk to him about it, the smile just lights up the room. Cool. Yeah, really excited. Next up, we've got a review of the comparison between the 2 Perth Mint coins. There's a video online. Jermayn prefers the coloured one.
Yeah, so look, we've got a review of them online. This is them here. So this is the one that came out at the end of last year. And then in March, you had the coloured one there as well. Look, we've got the video of it online. Bit of a comparison. This is a question that I had seen a lot of people ask and, ask on social media and everything is, if you're only going to get the one, which one would you get? So yeah, go watch the video because look, they're about $100 each. Not everyone is going to be able to fork out $200 for 2 of them. Go check that out. It's worth doing. I personally prefer the coloured one because it just makes the the Phantom pops a lot better than what he does if it's all the one colour and he's slightly embossed. He just kind of looks like a blob. So, yeah.
Good point.
You know what intrigues me about this as much as anything, and I haven't got the coloured one yet, but the idea of these coins and the fact that they are legal tender, and if you were to pop along to your local newsagent in Tuvalu, which is this tiny little island in the middle of the Pacific, thousands of kilometres off the coast of Australia, but you can pop down there, pick up your Phantom comic, pay for it with a Phantom coin, maybe get the Phantom coin in your change if you drop a pineapple or something trying to pick up this $5 comic. So yeah, I just love the idea of people actually spending this coin and it being in currency circulation.
How much is it actually worth?
You got it in your hand, don't you? It's $1,
Oh, it's
isn't it?
$1.
Yeah. So go and buy a Phantom comic, pay with a 50, and just ask for the change in $1 coins, and you should get at least one Phantom coin. You'd reckon?
Oh, I don't know, especially because it's $100 to be able to buy $1.
Purchase, yeah.
Oh, goodness. Rightio. I don't have the money for it. Well, maybe I do. I don't have it. So next up, I went to Supernova in Melbourne yesterday, but coming up we have Sydney Supernova, which is on the 17th and 18th of June. With the Lee Falk Memorial Bengalas Explorers Club guest has been announced, and that is Alex Tripp, who, like we've said before, it'll be an upcoming podcast. I actually spoke to him yesterday. He's really excited about coming onto the podcast. Frew will be at Supernova, which is excellent news. Creators so far that will be at Supernova will, of course, be Alex. Jamie Johnson will be there, Matt Kime, and we expect that others like Andrew Constant, Chris Secrera, and Daniel Picciotto will also be there. And once this is all known, we will, of course, promote more on our socials and on the website. Looking forward. Now, Jerm, I think you are going. Is that?
Yeah, so I was a 50-50. Basically, I got strong-armed by a couple of people. So I've bowed to peer pressure, and
Kicking
I
and
will be
screaming, no
going.
doubt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kicking
What about
and
you, Dan? Are you
screaming,
able to make it
exactly.
this year?
I still haven't made a final call. Probably not, though. I think it's 2-week fishing trip and a Phantom trip to Sydney in the same 2-month period. Probably going to be hard to justify.
Do some extra work around the house, guys.
I can't make it, hence why I went yesterday. I was able to go. And when I was talking, I can't remember who I was talking with, but I heard a comment from some kids passing by. There was so much Phantom stuff here today. And I thought, yes, damn straight there is Phantom stuff. And why? Because he's awesome and everyone should know who the Phantom is. And the more the merrier. In fact, I was just looking a minute ago when I was trying to find those comments about the glasses or not wearing those shades, the twins. And when I first popped up on Facebook, I see that Trevor's at Supernova today, and he's found another Phantom image by another artist down in the artist area. Well, I didn't see that yesterday. I was with my boy Jeremy, and he really enjoyed talking with all the artists, but he also wanted to go check out the gaming stuff as well, which was fun. I got to play competitive Rocket League and actually did all right in it, which was nice. But if Sydney Supernova is anything like Melbourne Supernova, the Phantom is in a much better place than it was a number of years ago. With people making comments like that, that's excellent for the Phantom.
Yeah, completely agree. It's look, Sydney's, or Sydnova as some people call it, is the big one. It's the big weekend where a lot of fans from around Australia go and meet up. There's going to be lots of chances for fan catch-ups, from Friday night to catching up at Supernova for lunch on Saturday. Obviously, there's the dinner on the Saturday night. It is worth making mention that is invite only. So, it's not open for every Tom, Dick and Harry. If you want to know more about that, contact us or look on our website and you can find out more about that as well. And then there's going to be fans that are going to be catching up on Sunday as well. So, if you've never been, and whether you live in Sydney or, you can make it, it is expensive. It is a weekend away from family and all that type of stuff. So, look, it is a big commitment. But if you can make it, make sure you go at least once in your life because, like Steve, you've gone once. Dan,
I've gone once.
come 2-3 times now. So
Yeah.
it is, but look, it is a big commitment. But there's a lot of guests. Frew will be at Supernova, so they will have items. I expect products. I expect comics, maybe a trade paperback or something like that, which will be available. You will be able to buy it afterwards, but you actually be able to kind of get it from them at Supernova. So look, it is usually pretty cool. And talking about Supernova, you've got some pretty exciting news, Steve.
Yeah, so in one of my chats that I had with Matt, I kept on going back to his store because every time I spoke with him, I then get distracted and be put away somewhere. I forgot to buy his a print, so I had to keep going back to buy a print. And on one of my visits to his store, a fellow by the name of Jason Franks just happened to be there. So Matt introduced us, and just so happens that Jason Franks is he's going to have a comic out, a Phantom story. He's a new Phantom writer. So for Frew, absolutely. So I quickly got the phone out and had a quick audio grab with him and asked him a couple of quick little questions. So we'll just throw to that audio grab right now. G'day everyone, it's Steve here from Chronicle Chamber with an exclusive. I'm here at Melbourne Supernova with Jason Franks. You might know him from a number of other projects. What have you been doing there, Jason?
My other projects?
Yeah. What will people know you from?
The Six Myths comics probably, or maybe my old McBlack books. I'm a novelist as well, so like Bloody Waters and Fairy Apocalypse are the best known things I've done.
Excellent. So I was just here at Matt Kime's booth and he introduced us, and in particular you've got some breaking news in regards of the Phantom there, Jason.
I do. My first Phantom story is coming out soon. The artist is Kay Bruno, and we're a first-time Phantom team. Our story is the Pinstripe Wizards, and it'll be out pretty soon.
Excellent. The Pinstripe Wizards.
Pinstripe Wizards.
Coming to a newsagents and a comic shop near you.
Yes, I don't know what the date will be, but first half of it is done and the second half is in progress. So
fantastic. As in the second half got the artworks being done?
Yeah, it's a two-parter.
Yep.
And part two is underway at the moment.
Excellent. Is the illustrator also doing the cover work?
I don't know.
Don't know? Oh, well, we'll soon find out, but it's lovely to meet you, Jason. I'm glad that we caught up.
Thank you very much. Great to meet you.
Cheers. Okie dokie. Thanks, Steve, for that audio grab. No worries.
Yeah.
That's all good.
Good work, Steve. So this is where we can give you a bit of a grill,
Yep.
and without giving information away, because we don't want Jason to get into trouble or anything like that. So what was Jason like? Did he seem like someone who knew the Phantom? Did he seem like he was going to pay respect to the Phantom, or was he just some young shot that's going to turn him into a jungle Batman?
No, I didn't think he'd be Jungle Batman. He's written comics and as well as novels as well. His website is www.jasonfranks.com if you want to check that out. From meeting, it just seems like a great guy, really. Just by meeting him, apparently he sent a few things into Frew. So we might be seeing a few more stories from Jason in the near future. This one that's being published soon is called The Pinstripe Wizards. It's a two-parter, so much in the same vein as like
Vietnam,
the Vietnam stories of Cripple Jake. They're 2 8-page episodes, and it's set in the 70s. And I was able to have a sneak peek of the art on Jason's phone, and I thought the artwork was great. And I'd love to say who the artist was, but I'm pretty sure it's in the audio grab, and I can't remember. But from memory, I think it's an American artist, and I think it's a female American artist, but don't quote me on that. Go re-listen to the audio grab. And as always, it's great to see new talent working on the Phantom. Yeah.
So how old would Jason be? Is he probably 20s, 30s, 40s?
Well, I don't know, comment about someone's age, but I've read 30s, 40s. He didn't look any older
he's
than
like
me.
Our age, if not a little bit younger.
Yeah, that's the same, like Matt, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I think Matt's older than us. He's
an
old
Gen X.
fart.
He's not. I wouldn't call him some young buck, but a Gen X.
Yeah. So he's probably a lot like us and Matt and some of these other creators who have, grown up with the Phantom,
Paul and all that sort of stuff.
And he's had a chance to come back and actually write a story. So no, that sounds exciting. As you said, it's always nice to see new people creating it.
Yeah. I did pick up his comic that he had for sale there. I haven't had a chance to read it yet because, well, I've been busy in the last however many hours it has been since I returned home last night. But
the Six Smiths?
sorry,
Is that the Six Smiths? Is
this one it's Frankenstein Monstrance is the one that I've read. I'll check at his website. Well, I can't. It was the one that I've got. Sorry. He's got a couple of novels out, like fantasy type novels, which my son Jeremy really wanted to read, but he's saying, yeah, you could probably read them, but they're pitched a little bit older. So he has an idea of audience, and just because you can read it doesn't mean you should read it. And yeah, much to Jeremy's dismay, I said, "Look, even the author's saying you shouldn't read this."
And if the author's saying that, your mum would definitely say it.
Yeah, so I wasn't going to buy it for him, and I wasn't letting him buy it for himself, which worked out well because he had $25 left, and he went and bought it on I spent it on actually, I've got it here, on a little drawing tablet. He's really into his art and starting off with digital art, so it's a nice little starting book for him. So I'm glad that he spent his money on that rather than on
a book.
On that. Well, yeah, it sounds weird that I'd rather him spend on technology than on a book, but in this case, yes.
Yeah. Oh, looking forward to. Did he give you any indication of when that was likely to be coming out?
No.
Well, if the art's been created or
done.
halfway done, it wouldn't be too far away.
Yeah, well, the art for that one's done. The second part isn't too far away. Yeah, so probably just have to wait for that second part to happen.
With what you talked about the 8 pages and all that, in talking to Frew and some other creators, Frew are always after the 8-page stories and parts. So if you are a creator out there and you're wanting to pitch to Frew, our suggestion would be is aim for those short stories because that's probably where you're likely to get in.
Certainly the foot door, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I got a chance to have half a chat with Dean Rankin, and he was really chuffed that his little story got into the Christmas issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Moving on, we got Hermes is re-releasing a soft cover album of past Gold Key album. Jermayn, you don't understand it.
No, by the looks of your face, you don't understand it either. So look,
I'm looking for faces that I've just read this here. I don't have the hardcover of it.
Hermes have released the would have been about 5 years ago the hardcover editions of the Gold Keys, Charltons, and stuff like that. Yeah. So apparently they are releasing a softcover version of it, which is going to maybe have a different interview and a new cover, but it's the same interior, the same. Obviously, if it's a soft cover, the chances are that it might be a little bit cheaper. We haven't written an article about this. I was in discussions with someone who was going to write it. He didn't really understand it either. And personally, I feel it's just a bit of a cash grab.
Now, those hardcovers are pretty expensive, though. So could this be where Hermes goes in the future with the softcover stuff? Make these things more affordable?
Yeah, that is a good point. But so buying it brand new, you're looking at about $80 to $100. You can buy them secondhand for $30, $40, maybe $50 at a stretch. And they are on eBay. They're, so if you want one,
these are the hardcover ones.
These are for the hardcover.
Yeah.
So if you want one, you can still find them and buy them hardcover and stuff like that. Look, I don't quite understand it. I'm going to buy it, review, and do a video comparison review of it because, hey, look, I'm prepared to be proven wrong. Hopefully I am proven wrong. Whether your question about whether this is going to be Herm's future by re-releasing their stuff but in soft cover, I hope not, personally. If that's the case, that means I think Herms won't have much future publishing the Phantom. It's interesting noticing that we've seen the daily hardcover ones of coming out a lot quicker. Like, they've actually released 2 volumes at the same time, and these are like early 80s stories. So we're fast approaching the end of Cybari's run, yet with the Sunday stories, they are releasing about 1 a year. But obviously the Sundays cost more because they're printed in colour everything like that as well. So I'm intrigued if this is going to be Herm's future, whether they're going to re-release albums as soft covers, or whether it's just a test of the market or whatever. It's
What do you think there,
I'm
Dan?
intrigued.
I hear your skepticism, but I don't know. I have absolutely no problem with it whatsoever. Like, Hermes produce beautiful, beautiful work, but it is very expensive. It's high end. If you could shave $20, $30, $40 off it by having a soft cover instead of a hard cover, I think they'd sell more. And I don't have any, what's the problem with them putting out a soft cover version of a book that's also come out in hardcover? No harm, no foul, is it, surely?
Yep. Oh, and that is the counter argument. I would rather see them produce new stuff.
Oh, well, of course. Yeah.
There's
of
always that
course,
argument
in terms of what actually works with their business model and their profit loss statements and all the rest of it. There's a lot of things I'd rather, but yeah, all good.
Okay. Moving on, we've got an exclusive here. May, June will be an online fundraiser event with some amazing artwork, auctioned including Phantom. Jem, have you got more on this?
Yeah, pretty much. This is just a bit of a tease. Keep an eye on our website. Patreons will probably get notified a little bit earlier than what the general public will. But there is end of May or June, early June. So around 3-4 weeks away, there's going to be a fairly major online fundraiser event, which has got some pretty cool artwork. So if you're an artwork collector, purchaser, buyer, keep an eye on it, because you might be able to snag yourself some cool artwork. So there's going to be some Jeff Weigel Sundays.
This is actual artwork. They're not prints.
They're original artwork. There's going to be some Cybarry stuff. Joe Giella, Keith Williams, Lou Manor, Antonio Lemus, Chris Nye, who is an American artist. He's not doing, and so that's from a Phantom perspective. And then there's going to be some other stuff, some non-Phantom artwork as well, which will find their way on it. So
a couple of questions. Who's organising it?
No comment.
Okay. And who's it fundraising?
Mate, that does sound good saying that.
And what's the fundraiser for?
No comment. All will be revealed.
Right. Okay.
So it is.
It does sound weird that who's the fundraiser for? Oh, I can't say.
Can't even say who the fundraiser's for.
No, not yet. This is
that
just a tease.
Someone
Just a
else's
tease.
We don't want to
It's just
steal
a
someone
tease.
else's thunder.
It's
Right,
just a tease.
so-
Let's put it
so
this way: that
the
the announcement will likely be made around or on all around the same time as the podcast. So there will be a podcast going into a lot more detail on it. This is just a bit of a sneak peek to get people excited and to start saving those pennies.
Well,
We can
especially
assume that-
it sounds like, did you say early May, June? So a fortnight or so before the Lee Falk dinner? That's unfortunate.
Yeah, so it'll be just before the Lee Falk dinner. So do those extra jobs around the house. Autumn's a good time if you're in Australia to do get the chainsaw out. So surely that's worth $100 from your missus. Offer to do the dishes every night, cook some dinners, let her go out and spend some money on a night out with the girls. So that way, when you spend some money, you won't feel as guilty.
Rightio, the plot thickens. Rightio, I'm sure it's for a worthy cause though, and there'll be some great art there. Well, I think that comes to the end of the podcast. I think we're still going to do a quick 1 hour, and I think we made it to an hour and a half. We haven't got to 2 hours. Looking at my little time in the top right hand corner of the computer, so that's a quick one for us. Fellas, once again, it's always a pleasure. But listeners, if you have any ideas or creators that you'd like us to see interviewed or re-interviewed, please contact us. I am in contact now with Jason Franks to get him up on the podcast, seeing he's a new creator. So hopefully that will all be sorted out very soon. But he's got a very busy weekend with Supernova in Melbourne. Remember, you can contact us. Our website is chroniclechamber.com. Our email is chroniclechamber@gmail.com. I hope your fans really enjoyed it. We love to hear your thoughts, feedback, and opinions on our social media platforms and all over on our YouTube channel as well. Remember, if you're listening to us for the first time, you can subscribe to us either via YouTube or through your favourite podcast apps, including iTunes or Spotify. I think that's all I've got for the outro. Jern, it's been a pleasure. Dan, it's been fantastic. And for everyone, happy Phantoming.
Happy Phantoming.
The ghost who walks. Enemies beware. The Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He finds